Long before he became the bulldog-faced symbol of British defiance in World War II, Winston Churchill was a fiery, ambitious young man with a hunger for glory and a knack for controversy. Born in 1874 into the British aristocracy, Churchill's youth was marked by boldness, intellect, and a relentless drive to make his mark on history. As a young officer in the British Army, Churchill saw action on multiple frontiers of the crumbling British Empire: Cuba, India, Sudan, and South Africa, always with a pistol in one hand and a notebook in the other. He famously rode in the last great cavalry charge of the British military at the Battle of Omdurman in 1898, then just as famously wrote about it with flair and self-promotion, quickly becoming a best-selling war correspondent and minor celebrity. In early photographs, Churchill appears lean, intense, and sharply dressed, his face not yet lined with the weight of war, but already showing a spark of audacity. Whether posing in his military uniform or civilian suit, he carried himself with a mix of entitlement and grit, as if already aware he was destined for something greater. To see a young Winston Churchill is to witness the early formation of a man who would one day rally a nation with words alone, a man already testing the boundaries of fate, danger, and destiny. In the fall of 1912, New York witnessed its first ever World Series game, an event that would mark the city's entry into baseball's most storied tradition. The clash was between the Boston Red Sox and the New York Giants, who would later become the San Francisco Giants, and it brought electric energy to the Polo Grounds, the Giants' home field nestled in Upper Manhattan. The stadium was packed with gentlemen in bowler hats and ladies in fine dresses, all buzzing with excitement for this relatively young but quickly growing national obsession. The crack of the bat echoed against the backdrop of steam engines and newsboys as tens of thousands of fans watched their Giants face off against Boston's powerhouse pitcher, Smokey Joe Wood. The 1912 series was a hard-fought, nail-biting affair, ultimately stretching to 8 games due to one tie and ending in dramatic fashion with a walk-off win for Boston in Game 8. But for New Yorkers, Game 3 at the Polo Grounds was a defining moment, the city's baptism into the spectacle and heartbreak of World Series baseball. It wasn't just a game, it was the beginning of New York's love affair with October baseball, one that would shape the city's identity and help crown it as the capital of America's pastime for decades to come. In an era before flash photography and televised speeches, portraiture was the primary way Americans connected with their leaders, and it was John Quincy Adams who became the subject of the first official presidential portrait. Painted in the early 1820s during or shortly after his presidency, this formal likeness marked the beginning of a long-standing White House tradition, immortalizing each president in oil and canvas for posterity. Adams, the 6th President of the United States and son of founding father John Adams, sat for the portrait with his characteristic intensity. Known for his intellectual rigor, moral conviction, and somewhat cold demeanor, Adams brought a sense of seriousness to the painting. His image was captured not just as a man, but as a symbol of the presidency itself, dignified, composed, and steeped in the classical ideals of Republican virtue. Painted by George Peter Alexander Healy or possibly Gilbert Stuart, depending on which of the portraits you reference, the artwork set the tone for all future presidential portraits: restrained elegance, sober posture, and a subtle air of power. It wasn't just about likeness, it was about legacy. Today, John Quincy Adams' official portrait hangs in the White House collection, the starting point of a visual timeline that reflects the evolving identity of the American presidency, from powdered wigs to power ties. On March 24, 1958, rock and roll was put on pause as Elvis Presley, the king himself, was officially sworn into the U.S. Army at the Memphis Draft Board. Just 23 years old, and at the height of his fame, Elvis stood in line like every other draftee. No rhinestones, no stage lights, just a solemn face, a buzz cut waiting, and a duty to serve. His induction shocked fans worldwide. Elvis had already revolutionized music and teenage culture, but now he was about to trade his leather jacket for army green. While many celebrities sought special treatment, Presley refused. He entered as a regular soldier, completed basic training at Fort Hood, Texas, and was eventually stationed in Friedberg, West Germany. The moment he raised his right hand and took the oath wasn't just a personal milestone, it was a cultural turning point. Elvis's military service helped bridge a generational divide. Older Americans saw it as a sign of responsibility and patriotism, while younger fans admired his humility and sacrifice. Though his time in the Army would reshape his image and even his music, Elvis's induction marked a rare moment when pop culture, patriotism, and world events collided under the flashbulbs of history. At first glance, it's just a faded class photo from the late 19th century. Rows of young boys in stiff collars and tidy coats, staring blankly into the camera. But in the top row, center, stands a child who would one day become one of history's most infamous figures, Adolf Hitler. Taken in 1899 at a school in Leonding, Austria, this photo captures Hitler at around age 10, before the world knew his name. At that time, he was the son of a strict Austrian customs official and a doting mother. Described by some teachers as intelligent but headstrong, young Adolf had artistic ambitions and a deep interest in German nationalism, seeds of identity that would later evolve into radical ideology. This image is chilling not for what it shows, but for what it doesn't. It reminds us that even the most monstrous figures in history began as ordinary children, shaped by family, education, culture, and circumstance. It's a haunting visual paradox, a child among children, yet destined to lead a regime responsible for unprecedented horror. Looking back, the photo stands not as a curiosity, but as a quiet warning, proof that history's darkest chapters often have the most unassuming beginnings. In one of the most haunting photographs to emerge from the Holocaust, a Jewish man kneels at the edge of a mass grave in Vinnytsia, Ukraine, 1941, his fate moments away. Behind him stands a German Einsatzgruppen officer, gun drawn. Around the trench lie the bodies of those already murdered. The photo is simply captioned, "The Last Jew in Vinnytsia." This image freezes a single moment of cruelty during Operation Barbarossa. When Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union and unleashed mobile killing units, Einsatzgruppen, tasked with systematically executing Jews, Roma, and political dissidents. Vinnytsia, once home to a thriving Jewish community, was the site of mass executions where over 28,000 Jews were murdered, often by gunfire, at the edge of open pits. The photograph was reportedly found among the belongings of a German soldier, never meant to be a public record, yet it became undeniable proof of the genocide that unfolded in the open, long before the gas chambers of Auschwitz. Unlike many Holocaust photos taken after the fact, this one captures the precise moment before death, a frozen second of helpless humanity confronting inescapable horror. It is not just a record, it is a witness and a warning. This image and the man in it, nameless, voiceless, continues to echo through history, a symbol of those lost and the depths of cruelty human beings are capable of inflicting. In a photograph both surreal and horrifying, a towering mountain of bison skulls stretches skyward, thousands upon thousands of bones stacked like a grotesque monument. Taken around 1892 in a Michigan processing plant, this image captured the aftermath of one of the most devastating episodes in American environmental history, the near extinction of the American bison. Just decades earlier, tens of millions of bison thundered across the Great Plains, sustaining ecosystems and indigenous cultures alike. But by the late 19th century, the bison had become a target, hunted not just for meat or hides, but as part of a deliberate strategy to destroy the food supply of native tribes and clear the way for westward expansion. Railroads made it easy. Hunters killed bison by the thousands daily, sometimes leaving carcasses to rot in the sun. Bones were later collected and shipped to be ground into fertilizer, glue, and bone china. The photo of the skull pile isn't just a record of industrial efficiency, it's a symbol of destruction on an almost unimaginable scale. By the time this photo was taken, fewer than 1,000 bison remained in the wild. It stands today as a stark reminder of how quickly abundance can become absence, and how progress unchecked can leave behind mountains of loss.